Good morning, everyone. We will begin the morning service of the Miroku Association headquarters, asking God and Meishu-sama for protection and the permission to participate today in the divine plan of constructing a paradise on this earth. Let us pray together the Amatsu-Norito prayer of heaven, followed by the Miroku prayer. Please stand. Taka ni kanzumarimasu. Kamurogi kamuromi no mikoto mochite. Sumemi oya kamu izanagi no mikoto. Tsukushi no imuka no dachi hana no oto no awaki wala ni misogi hara itamo toki ni narimaseru hara ito no kami tachi moro moro no magagoto tsumi kegare yo arai tamai kiyome tamai tongao sukoto no yoshio amatsu kami kunitsu kami yao yorozu no kami tachi tomoni ame no fuchi koma no mimi burita te kikoshi meseto kashikomi kashikomi mo maosu Miroku Oni Kami Mamori Tamae Saki Hae Tamae Miroku Oni Kami Mamori Tamae Saki Hae Tamae Shie Miyoya Nushi no Kami Mamori Tamae Saki Hae Tamae Oshie Miyoya Nushi no Kami Mamori Tamae Saki Hae Tamae. Kum nagara tamachi haemase. Kum nagara tamachi haemase. Great God of light, creator and giver of all life, in accordance with your divine will, the long age of night draws to an end. Your radiant divine light, shining ever more brilliantly, awakens the dawn of the glorious age of light, a time long awaited by all humanity. We thank you for guiding us to your divine plan and for the privilege of channeling and receiving Johrei. May our spirits and bodies be illuminated and purified as we live your truth given to us by Meishu-sama. Make us pure and effective instruments of your divine light, so that we may serve you and all those with whom we come in contact. May paradise on earth be realized, with health, peace, and prosperity, a reality in our lives. Great God of light, bless and protect us. Radiate our souls with your divine light, so that we may truly become instruments of your grace. Please be seated. We will now receive group Johrei.
Meishu-sama, bless you.
Johrei is now concluded. We will now listen to a reading from Meishu-sama's teaching. Truth, virtue, and beauty. Only deeds of love can bring forth a world completely filled with truth, virtue, and beauty. Paradise on earth will be a world of beauty, a place where the inner hearts of all its inhabitants are just as beautiful. One whose thoughts, words, and deeds are always pure, always beautiful, can surely be considered one who lives in paradise. God's purpose is to create an ideal world where truth, virtue, and beauty reign. Needless to say, the dark forces foster falsehood, vice, and ugliness. Beauty is necessary to the soul, as it brings joy and a sense of wholeness, not only to yourself, but to all who come in contact with it. It can be called a kind of virtue. The higher a civilization is, the more conscious it should be of the value of and need for beauty. It is essential that everyone cultivate a greater sense of aesthetic values. By so doing, not only individuals but nations as a whole will benefit, making beauty and its expressions in the various phases of life one of a person's main goals in a contribution of immeasurable value towards the betterment of society, which will certainly serve as a means of furthering the realization of paradise on earth. Beautiful environments make for beautiful thoughts, helping to place a person's mind on a higher plane. This in turn reduces crime and other negative actions in society. It must be realized that any teaching that aims at high ideals should maintain an awareness of beauty.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Miroku Association headquarters morning service. Thank you also for joining in our prayers towards world peace. This morning, I want to share with you the faith experience of Ingrid Keller Santos Padilla Baeta. She's from the Ilha do Governador Johrei Center in Rio de Janeiro. In February of 2021, Ingrid's father, who has been a Johrei member for some 30 years, experienced a blister on his left foot that burst, expelling large amounts of pus. His leg became quite red and swollen. Interestingly, there was also a callus on the bottom of his little toe on the same foot. Ingrid's family became very worried because the father, 63 years old, is also diabetic and often suffers from hypertension. Consequently, they decided to admit him to a hospital. And around that time, Ingrid reported the matter to her minister. After initial exams were conducted, the diagnosis revealed a necrosis in his foot. Necrosis is a condition in which most or all of the cells in an organ or tissue are considered dead. A vascular surgery team concluded that his leg should be amputated as soon as possible, and accordingly, her father remained hospitalized. Ingrid and her family were able to stay in the hospital and were given permission to give him Johrei without interruption, which they did for 3 days. As an additional practice of faith, they offered special donations of gratitude prior to his surgery. The first procedure was meant to be performed on March 7th. The initial step was presumed to be to sever the foot just a few inches above the ankle. Yet, the medical team noticed an improvement in his condition and decided to remove only the toe and observe further developments in Ingrid's father's case. After a few days, the pus discharge continued to persist, and consequently, the doctors decided to perform a second surgery. However, fate intervened, as one patient with a very serious condition needed to be operated on as a top priority. Therefore, the intervention on her father's foot had to be rescheduled. Ingrid felt very grateful and perceived that Meishu-sama was likely allowing time for her father's true health recovery. On the very same day, her father was transferred to a different medical unit because he had contracted coronavirus and would not be able to undergo surgery as initially scheduled. Once again, Ingrid felt grateful and turned the situation over to God and Meishu-sama. As her family could no longer stay in the hospital, they intensified the channeling of Johrei amongst themselves at home and invested themselves deeply into the study of Meishu-sama's teachings. After a few days of her dad being in isolation, Ingrid was informed by the medical team that in addition to becoming asymptomatic as far as COVID 19 goes, there was considerable improvement in her father's foot. So much so, the surgery was no longer considered necessary. Miraculously, Ingrid's father was discharged and advised to tend to the healing of his toe at home. The family continued giving intensive joy to him and together participated in the daily care required for the cleaning of the foot and the application of bandages. Healing took place as expected, and after a few months, he fully recovered. During the period in which her father was hospitalized, Ingrid felt constant divine protection. Her father felt no pain, and even before from the difficult purification, Ingrid maintained her faith, remaining grateful and confident. She's very grateful to God and Meishu-sama, as well as to her ancestors, for the purification blessings received, and to all who joined fervently in prayer. Her commitment is to remain firm in her faith, fulfilling her mission as an assistant minister and guiding people to be happy and useful in the divine work. Wonderful experience indeed. Thank you very much for staying till the end of this broadcast. I wish you a very wonderful day.
This brings to a conclusion our morning service. Thank you everyone for joining us. We wish you a very blessed day.